Plyometric progressions. Are you using them to prepare your athletes for plyometrics? Here are some reasons why I would not potentially use a plyometric progression. So what are they? A plyometric progression model is going through different phases of the breakdown of a plyometric or movements that are per se a derivative of a plyometric to eventually getting to doing plyometric training. You might go through learning how to land, learning how to take off, putting that together in more of a counter movement based jumping action, and then getting into plyometric actions. Where I think this falls short is that when you break down a dynamic movement, let's say in the braking phases and the propulsive phases, as a training method, they become very different in the adaptations that you get in comparison to plyometrics. If we're looking at just propulsive phases or just takeoff based actions, we're truly just training more of a muscular output. And we train muscular outputs in a lot of strength training. We're also getting that a little bit in just typical plyometrics anyway. And where it falls short in comparison to plyometrics is that we don't get the stimulus on the tendon that we hope to receive with plyometrics. Having the landing and takeoff based action puts that tendon through high length and stress and then gives us that snapback of that reflexive energy that we're hoping to get from the tendon. And that's ultimately why when you're moving at speed, you'll travel a lot further, you'll jump a lot higher, and you'll be moving faster in general. When you're doing things from a static position, the muscles have to do a lot more pushing action, and it's inherently a lot slower. If we're to look at the braking phases then, we're looking at more of the landing. I personally would never necessarily teach someone how to specifically get into those landing positions for them to feel kind of inherently safe. I think what happens here is we do get a length on that tendon, but then we hope to apply another layer of braking force to abruptly stop our momentum. Ironically, I think that actually teaching the landing phases as an initial component to plyometrics could actually be more intense than just doing a basic light tier plus plyos leaping action like this. I feel like a lot of youth athletes, young children, even people in the elderly population could probably get to a stage where they could do this. And it might not be intense forms of plyometrics, but it's just the movement patterns reduced to an amplitude that a lot of people can handle. So I think when we're looking at the landing phases as a starting point, this might be too intense. Where I also think that you fall short is actually in the skills that come with having to land and abruptly stop your momentum. This deceleration actually teaches us this overtly bracing kind of ready for impact like control of the trunk and torso. Although we want to brace when we're doing plyometrics, it has to be lightning fast. We can't hold too much of that brace in the air because we're not trying to completely decelerate and stop our momentum. We're looking to deflect off the ground, and our inherent focus should be on the takeoff. So where do I think that you should go instead of using a plyometric progression? Well, using our plus plyos method, you're able to start with a light tier form of movement. This teaches you all the landing skills that you're going to need to improve your takeoff capacity. It's going to provide you with proprioceptive awareness. It is going to tell you how to anticipate the floor effectively. It's going to give you a great way in which you can organize your body effectively to stiffen at the right time, utilize energy of incoming momentum, and continue to propel yourself along. Here is where we can do lots of high volume work too, which also facilitates us then taking a bit of a step up into plus plyos medium tier or sub-maximal movement. The medium tier is great for preparing you for more intense methods. It's super valuable in that we do have sub-maximal forms of plyometrics in our training. What we can do here is make sure that we're still getting a high amplitude of force, still doing it at a relatively fast speed, so ground contact times are short, and this in itself helps us to train that tendon and that reflexive action from our passive tissue to a degree that's very close to highly intense forms of plyos. What you can do here as well is that you probably have much more of an exponential capacity for volume in the medium tier too. you're probably able to do about 50 or 60% more medium tier landings than you would do in completely high intense forms of plyometrics. And if you feel like you're still able to do lots of high volume, max intent plyometrics, it's probably because that intensity has actually just fallen off as you've gradually gone further and further into that session. So scale from the light tier, move into the medium tier, have them pieced together in every session that you're doing. And then where I think is a really valuable component of learning actually those eccentric control capacities is actually in our deep tier. Our deep tier is also a landing and takeoff based action, but it isn't plyometric in per se the typical way in which we observe plyometrics. It doesn't have a fast ground contact time, but it really does teach us how to control eccentric rate of force development. This too, in turn, I think supports the rest of the plyometrics that we do. So it's going to support the light, medium, and then the ping or high intense tier that we'll eventually get to. So you roll through those light, medium, using the deep tier all at the same time, and you start to build skills. Skills should be the forefront of what you're trying to learn when it comes to dynamic movement. The physical parameters should be realistically a second thought, because the physical parameters are a very quick adaptational change in the way that you're learning to move. But the skills take considerably longer. So when you feel that you have got to a point, let's say you're using light tier movements and you feel competent, you're able to do 10 to 15 reps in a relaxed state, then it's time to turn it up. It's time to step up into more of a submaximal based parameter. You might test that movement. Is it a case that things fall apart? If so, stay within that medium and light tier. Once you've got to a stage where you feel comfortable, I'm really able to start moving effectively in this medium tier bounding action. I can do a high repetition of them. I can stay relaxed, but I'm still carrying some pretty good speed. Then I can start to play with those ping tier movements. And amongst all of that, I'm still using the deep tier to train those eccentric controlling components there as well. So get rid of plyometric progressions, use the plus plyos tiered system, because that is going to be the thing that improves your plyometrics. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know also if you've used the plyometric progression before and if you're now kind of changing your mind on it based on this video. Thanks. See you on the next one.